So welcome everybody. This is Jay Graves with Pathfinder, where I focus on leadership development and organizational excellence strategy. I am here with my friend Sara. Sara and I went to grad school together, and she is in the thick of things. She's in the healthcare industry, and she's in New York City. So she has been in the front line since the beginning of this pandemic started, and today I'd really just like to get her perspective as a leader, as somebody who's having to lead through crisis, and just some of her experiences. So, Sara, thanks for spending the time with me today, and tell us a little bit about your background, and then we'll just keep it conversational and go from there.
Sounds good. Thanks again for having me, Jay. And yeah, so my name's Sara. I'm actually in the healthcare field for going on 20 plus years at this point. Primarily working in long-term healthcare and skilled nursing facilities. I've lived in New York for over 16 years now, live in the city, and work in a long-term care facility. So I do want to preface this discussion, I guess, with that these are my opinions and my thoughts on leading and managing through this pandemic. I love the company I work for. I am not an authorized commenter for anything for our company or our policy, so none of these thoughts are coming from the company, but from myself and my personal experience during this pandemic.
Yeah, great. Definitely understand that, and that's really what I wanted. I mean, we've been sitting here talking for a little while, and I think it's just that realistic look at things. We're bombarded with news and different people's viewpoints and everything else, and so it's great just to hear from somebody's perspective, right? And people can agree or disagree, but for me, I've been chatting with you since pretty much the start of this, and have definitely seen the roller coaster that it has been, for folks like you and others that I talk with that are front and center of this. And I am interested in your experiences as a leader and dealing with leading through dynamic change in a crisis like what we're in. How's that been for you?
A true roller coaster, and I think it's really pushed the limits of my skill set as a leader. And I consider myself a pretty dynamic leader. I consider myself an empath. I tend to feel things very heavily, and I think that has, in something like this, extreme positives and also some really, unfortunately, hard negatives. I think one of the biggest things probably for leaders, and in my personal experience and what I'm watching in our leadership team, has been having to set your thoughts, emotions, and feelings aside and still step up to the plate and ask of your employees, of your team members, that you never thought you'd have to ask. I know you're a vet, Jay, and I think a lot of our initial conversations were really likening this to preparing to go to war, preparing to go to combat, about the trauma in the actual experience of it and thinking about the trauma afterwards. And I think initially I kind of went into go mode. For me, it's sort of my sweet spot. I'm very good in a crisis. I'm very good during chaos. I thrive there. So that part of it, I think initially on, was good until the feelings and the emotions hit, until I realized that given the serious issues with the personal protective equipment, the PPE, especially in a nursing home type setting, how limited our supplies were, and then having to have a discussion about how vital my staff were in terms of, I have a background in rehab therapy, so physical occupational speech therapy, and running those departments. I'm an occupational therapist by license, so my role currently is overseeing several of our skilled nursing facilities and working with the rehab teams and the nursing teams there. And immediately, I kind of came to a decision on my own and just called my boss and said, "This is what I'm going to do." When we really had to go into emergency mode, things, all of a sudden it hit one day that things were really going to change. Our previous director had to take an early maternity leave, and I just stepped back into that role and said, okay, I've got 30 people here. What am I going to do with them to, one, keep them safe, two, keep them showing up every day, and three, manage of the emotions and things that are going to come up with this. And I think for me that sort of the role of therapist, not actual occupational therapist, but almost like talk therapist, has been just as important as coming up with the operational and the procedural stuff that we need to get done daily. So I would say the first few weeks, the adrenaline and the intensity kind of kept me going. Those 12, 14-hour days, whether it was there, what continued at home, and showing up every day. And then all of a sudden, for me, when the emotion hit, it was kind of, I had a couple real, for lack of a better term, come to Jesus moments.
Right.
And I'm not religious at all. And, so, yeah, that was, it's been a lot.
Yeah. You mentioned there, about the emotion and as humans, we are emotional beasts. And of course you have clinical training in this, so I don't want to misspeak, but one of the things I learned, I was trained in behavior science when I was in the military, and one of the things that we used to talk about was the lizard brain or the reptile brain, and how people will, they want safety, security, shelter, and emotional stability, and that is what leaders tend to provide for people. The interesting thing about being a leader is you need your own, right? So like we're all sitting in this chaotic situation, and we have families or whatever it is our dynamics are that we're having to deal with. Everybody's impacted by this, and you have to kind of find a way to say, okay, I'm dealing with that, but by position and by title, I'm a leader, and I've got people, I've got a business that I've got to run, and I've got people I've got to take care of, because they're going through this emotional roller coaster as well. And, some leaders, and this is something that I definitely coach against, keep their people in the dark, thinking that, I don't want to be a burden on them. They're dealing with their own thing, and they think they're doing the right thing, right? But an engaging leader, which, like you, I know you've worked with your team, you're very forward thinking and kind of leaned into everything. You engage your team in such a way that, they're a part of the solution, they have direction, which provides them that security, that feeling of security and focus, so that they can do their job and stay, hopefully, safe themselves, because you're putting those procedures in and on top of, you're using your business mind, right, to put the procedures in and everything else to help out with that.
Yeah. I think for me, from a managerial perspective, I've always found transparency to be one of the strongest leadership tactics, if you would, that I've used. I am, and these are staff I had managed for a few years before I moved up in the company. So I know them. I know their families. Some of them, their kids come out. I get to bring my dog to work in normal circumstances. Their kids will hang out in my office and play with my dog while I'm doing conference calls. And things. So it's that kind of environment. So there is a personal element to it. But I think from the forefront, what I did immediately was set up a standing daily staff meeting, and it wasn't to try to scare them. And I would have to preface every meeting with, I'm going to be brutally honest with you guys that, expect this isn't going away in a week, 2 weeks, a month. And, as it kind of built up, as we started to get the numbers here in New York, where we all thought maybe we're going to get this breather, I had to come to grips with it myself first, that the next 2 weeks are going to be really awful. When we were in late March and early April, that this is going to get bad. And I had to stand up in front of these people and tell them that things are going to get bad. You need to mentally prepare yourself. I don't know what that looks like for you, but my door is open. Come talk to me. And there were a lot of texts, a lot of phone calls, a lot of people coming into my office. There were a lot of tears, and people are frightened, and a lot of jokes and music too. And what's amazing is I think we discount the resiliency people have, and when you give them facts and information, they were able to process that. And, even in the middle of the staff meeting, twice I had 2 women have panic attacks. And against my own nature, kind of had to let them do that and keep going with the meeting. And a couple of the other employees comforted them. But I had information we had to get out and plans we had to make. I offered them that transparency, and I did offer them that, they know me, that I wouldn't ask anything of them that I would not be willing to do for myself. So I was able to come from that point where I actually drafted up a 2-page document and presented it to our leadership, saying, here are my concerns about how we deliver services, and here's how I think it'll impact the PPE burn and things like that from I think from that business side of things. So applying that business knowledge to try to protect my staff, but also show them that it's not business as usual. I'm not here to just say, go to work, guys. I'm here to make sure we're doing this the right way, as safe as we can be. And I think the two moments we had where it hit home for everyone was one where I said, listen, you know, I feel you guys, but I said, this is hard. There's no script for this. There's no right or wrong for this. And I think it was coming to that because as a leader, they look at you kind of, what should we do now? What's the right answer? What is the company doing? How are we, you know, what does tomorrow look like? What does next week look like? What's going to happen? And, you know, we talked earlier personally, like, you know, when you're a good DSer and when you're a good, you know, part of being a leader, you can kind of motivate people and keep them going. I didn't have the answer. And what I came to was that every day you all have a decision to make and letting them know that this is unprecedented. That I do the same thing. Every morning I lay in my bed and for a few minutes it's normal because you can forget, you know, after just waking up that this is all kind of normal and that I don't have to go in and see death and see people scared and talk to families who can't talk to their loved ones or see their loved ones. That every day you wake up, you have a decision to make and that decision will be to come in here and do your job or not. And I said, there is no judgment for me on what you decide to do. I said there could potentially be consequences, you know, and that's separate and aside. You do have a job, and there are, you know, unfortunately, as in times like this as a healthcare worker, we are considered essential. So there are requirements, but you each have an individual decision to make every day. And I think by giving them the freedom to process that and determine it, you know, some people just needed a change in schedule. Some people just said, I need a mental health day, you know, I'm going to call in sick. And I'm like, you know what, go, you know, okay, I understand that. And I'm sure my company wouldn't be happy to hear that. But you know what I mean? You have to, I think, as your own, whatever type of leader you're going to try to be, is know your people and read them and anticipate what they might need, and not just what I need from them, but here's what I'm willing to give you. And I think that moment was really powerful for them, and a couple of them made decisions, and the majority of them, you know, they've been showing up. And a lot of my staff, unfortunately, got COVID, and not because we didn't do things correctly, not because we had, you know, our infection control procedures and policies in place for this. We were a couple weeks ahead of even New York State DOH guidelines. The stuff was there. That's just how awful this virus is and spread, and how unknown, how many things we don't know about it. And even in the midst of all of that, you know, people continue to show up, and I think it speaks volumes to leadership and to knowing your staff, knowing your employees, and coaching them through something like this.
Yeah, that comment about, you know, sometimes people underestimate how resilient people are is one of the things I think that is missing in those leaders that lean towards saying, well, I don't want to bother them. I want to keep the burden from them. And again, it's coming from a good place. It's just kind of, it's just, the results aren't good. You know, they're trying to figure out a way that they can be, you know, lack a better term, at a friend of mine that called it a shit deflector. You know, and there's certainly times when you're trying to keep some of the BS off of your, you know, employees and stuff that, you know, you just don't want them worried about. But in times of crisis, you know, they are looking for answers. And the interesting thing that you talk about is, you know, being that transparent leader. I mean, I think that's exactly spot on, because, you know, I don't know about you, but whenever I've worked with leaders that feel like they have all the answers, it scares the hell out of me. Like, you really shouldn't expect me as a leader to have all the answers. I have a team, you know, I have the capabilities to go and find information, but you know, in a dynamic situation like what we're dealing with right now, you may have 60% of the answer and have to still go, right? And you know, not to sound melodramatic, I mean, you know, I've talked about it, but I think there are a lot of parallels with what you and other folks are you know, who are on that front line are experiencing to those of us who have been in combat, because there is the same, like what you just described, there's the, you know, ambiguity, there's always a battle plan, and as soon as you take off on that battle plan, something punches you in the face, and you have to adjust it, and you have to look at your people who are looking to you for solutions, and you have to be able to say, right, I'm going to engage you to help me with these solutions, but here's what we're going to do, and I have 60% of it. If it's a mistake or we need to pivot, we're going to do that, but let's be comfortable with that. And then the emotional side that you're talking about comes into play, and you're dealing with other people's emotions as well as your own. So, I know you and I had talked, I think, when things just finally kind of piled onto you emotionally, and you had to find a way to rebound and keep leading your team. And what is it that you reached for in yourself to kind of get through that, and then how are you now managing yourself so that you don't hit that burnout again?
Gosh, that's hard. For me, speaking to what you spoke about before, I think, again, taking a step back and evaluating what I know about my employees and trying to translate and speak to them in a way that, I can think on my feet. I'm good with pivoting. I can do the quick change. Frontline people are in that position because they like their routine. They like knowing what they're doing. They like to stay in their lane. That's not a bad thing. So we're asking a level of flexibility and change for these people to rapidly change how they do things in a way we've never asked them to before. So I think for me, it was figuring out how I was going to get them on board with that. And that really was, again, by those daily meetings, a lot of conversation and really explaining to them that we had the access to the best and most current information, but quite literally, there were days I had 2 meetings where what I said in the morning, 180 to the afternoon because CDC changed or we changed the guidelines, and it did change that quickly. I think for me, typically, they laugh. There's a, we make a lot of, I'm a movie buff, we make a lot of jokes like a Bronx Tale, it's better to be loved or to be feared, as a leader and as a boss. And, I've had them come in and they're like, Sarah, they're scared of you. And I said, are they really scared? And someone came in one day and she said, we're not scared of you. You're very nice. They're like, we're scared of disappointing you. And I think that that was kind of a good thing to hear as a leader, and again, that my expectations are generally pretty high, but knowing that that's how they see me, I'm not outwardly emotional at work with purpose. And we had a meeting one day where everything kind of did pile up for me, and I was fighting for their safety and really making a drastic change to how we deliver services and programming, and a lot of emotion around that. And I broke during the meeting, and I let the emotion go, not a total sobbing mess, but even now, like, I'm tearing up a little about it. I let it go a little bit and let them know that I was scared. That, I talked to my mom, and my mom is crying on the phone, worried about, do we need to send your brother to come rescue you out of New York? And I'm like, no, Mom, I can't do my job. But,
like, I'm on my way out of the city.
Mom's never changed. It's great that way.
Yeah.
But I think letting them see that emotion, every staff member I had in that meeting was crying by the end of it, but I think we all kind of needed that release, and letting them see that, hey, this is impacting me too. This is not about business. This is not about, and really taking a stance that I could, not in that sense, but really like I could care less about money or about the quote unquote business right now. What we need to do is keep our residents healthy, keep you guys healthy, and find a way to survive this together. And letting them see that was helpful for me, and I don't think I realized until a day or two after how helpful it was to let myself open up a little bit that way in front of them, that it's okay for me to have some emotions about this. And I think, honestly, a lot of the talks with you about comparing this to combat and the trauma that comes with that, small things to keep myself well. I actually no more than 10 minutes of news a day. I put it on in the morning and almost put a timer on. I will watch the local news if that's when I'm up in the morning, 10 minutes, and that's it. Otherwise, it's overwhelming. I had to seriously edit and limit my social media time because you do get angry. Even now we were talking, I think, prior to this conversation about the changes in New York and about the investigations into the nursing home settings and all the deaths that have happened. And obviously that hits 100% close to home.
Sure.
And how the media portrays that. I mean, and if I went in on it, I had to stop myself just yesterday from engaging on a friend's post, because, where's the Facebook argument going to get you, really? I'm just going to get mad, and that person's never going to hear me or understand me.
Yeah. Nobody's opinion's ever been changed on Facebook from what I've seen so far.
No,
so it's just, if you're feeling salty and you want to go on and you feel like doing a little sparring match or something, maybe to let some steam off, right?
Yeah, giving myself permission, I think, to, when I get home, spend days and where pretty much all I can do is lay on the couch after the work process and talking to people who say, yeah, that's okay. Like, you're allowed to just want to sleep or just want to not engage, or, days where I have to tell my family, I'm sorry, I just can't talk today. I'm home, I'm safe, no symptoms, but I just can't talk today. And letting people know that when you do talk to them, I can't talk to you about COVID, or no more than 3 minutes about COVID, because I live and breathe it all day, every day. So I think setting limits becomes really important, knowing what you need. Even on nights where I don't feel terribly social, the happy hours, the Zoom, whatever you want to call them, that I've committed to, logging in and just kind of trying to talk to people and have some fun. Doing a couple of the online exercise classes. I'm an avid runner, and I'm trying to socially distance well and not run outside. So it's been finding other ways to get some of that in, but also knowing that, hey, if I just don't feel like doing that exercise today, that's okay too. And I think really just I know you and I talk a lot. It's just a lot of conversations with people, and how, for me, it really helps to hear how others are experiencing it, kind of what they're going through, because it kind of puts perspective that even though I'm here in the city, kind of on the front lines of it, the whole world is going through that. I'm not just in my own bubble. That getting the reminder that everybody's experiencing loss in some way, shape, or form right now, and how, learning how others are coping with it.
Yeah, so true. A couple things there. We were talking about our experience as being non-quant people during our time in grad school, and how you form these bonds and friendships with people because they strengthen your weaknesses, and your strengths do the same for them. And it's kind of the same thing when we're in these situations. Maybe I don't want to walk out of my house one day just because I'm done, and for whatever reason I'm feeling kind of overwhelmed, or I don't want to talk on the phone to somebody when they call. But you have to give yourself grace. And then the great thing about it is, that when you do need somebody, just like when we were in school and they're strong in an area and you're like, I need some of that right now, you can reach out, and that you'll have a support base. And so that's always, it goes back to that reptile brain of wanting some kind of safety and stability that you can rely on. And the fact that we are all going through this in some kind of way, it looks different for different people, and people react differently, but there is a support system out there, which is phenomenal to have. And personally, I've enjoyed our chats, just because it's fun. I love your humor,
and that it's okay to laugh, I think, and joke, because at first, like, anyone who posted jokes about COVID, and at the beginning, we were talking about, I have an MBA WhatsApp group, and we chat, and some people were posting some memes and jokes, and someone posted an article that was kind of counter to my thoughts on things, and I didn't react. I thought about my answer, but I just said, hey, just so you know, these things hit really close to home to me. And I said, I'm dealing with literally a lot of death and illness every day on a level, even for me, and I used to work at an Alzheimer's facility. So, I've seen a lot of people exit this world and held hands, and that's not something unheard of in what we do. But I said, this is something who could have ever prepared for this? So I gave my thoughts, and I just said, it's okay, but I'm not going to engage in these things. They cause me anxiety. They cause me, and And just by virtue of saying that, it was good because some people said, hey, sorry, I didn't realize that was making you feel that way. And other people said, cool, thanks for letting me know. And they were still able to make their jokes and and I've gotten to a point where some of these things are damn funny. And, I can laugh about it a little now. And if we can't laugh and joke, that it's okay to cope with it differently in different ways, and that it's okay to laugh in the midst of all this tragedy about it, I think, that's been really helpful as well.
Yeah, humor is a special thing at the right times. And you think about, I usually cringe while I love watching them. I love watching like war movies and stuff or whatever. But usually I cringe at them because of portrayals, and sometimes the stereotypes and everything else. And I love my soldiers. I love soldiers to this day. And and some of the portrayals are kind of interesting, but one of the ones that is a pretty common theme is when stuff just hits the fan and people are, really, really wound tight. You always have that one or two hilarious jackasses that just know when to break. They know when to break the ice and just to get you laughing, and all the stress just kind of falls away, and then you're able to regroup and say, all right, we're a brotherhood. We're coming back to work tomorrow, kind of thing. So, there's definitely, but there is timing, right? There is timing to that as well, so.
It could hit on the wrong day and that's when I've learned it's okay. I don't have to respond. Like my brother sent me the honey badger video, and that's been out forever, but it just came on the right day, and I click on it and it's like, honey badger, don't do it, I died. I was crying, I was laughing, and I have to say, you do see a great side of people. I have my running joke that I said, stuff's gone real bad when two ex-boyfriends and an ex-husband all reach out and text you to ask if you're okay and how you're doing. So I said, things have gone wonky when that happens. And you know what, though? Every person who's reached out, and I have people who, I do running sports groups and things in the city here, and people I'm not super close with, but who just kind of check in weekly or every few days and say, hey, how are you? How you doing? I had so many people reach out and say, how can I help you? Whether it was, can we make masks? A lot of people donated their monthly Metro cards that I was able to give to employees in our building who still had to commute. People come out in kind of some amazing ways, and just there was a good week where I think every text I got and every just check-in had me just sobbing. Because that's where I was. And now, like I said, it's nice to be able to, I'm realizing now that I could do a better job of checking in on some other people and doing, so it's been, even for me, eye-opening in terms of how we experience all of this, ways I can improve, but also ways that people have really, that people can process this in a positive way, that good things can come from this. So that's been a nice lesson.
Well, I tell you, this just kind of popped in my mind. One, you're an experienced leader. You're relying on, while we've not been through a pandemic, unless we're, from like 1917 or something, none of us have ever experienced something like this before. But we've all had crisis in our lives, right? And so those of us who have been leading for a long time, have been through different challenges, can pick and pull from those experiences. And you've given a ton of great advice on here for leaders, and just kind of through the flow of your thought. For somebody who is a brand new manager right now, or maybe you even have some that are reporting to you right now, how are you helping them navigate through their first, this is, for a new leader, this is not like, oh, you hit a really crappy market and your sales might take a hit, and how are we going to recover through the year? This is the real deal. So, what advice do you have, or what have you done with new leaders that you might have that you're dealing with?
So I do have one. She had to step up when the other woman went out on maternity leave, so kind of thrown into the role. And then in the midst of that, by the way, here's a whole pandemic, the likes of which we've never seen.
Right.
So I just went in. I'm like, for me, I'm kind of sarcastic and made a joke. I just went in. I'm like, you're good, right? You got all this? You got it handled? And she just kind of looked at me, and I think she thought I was serious for a second. Then she just started cracking up. And I was like, I said, tell me what you need. And I look to things that aren't really important that normally she would do. I just offloaded some tasks for her that, you know, I knew she wanted to learn. She was kind of trying to do it all. So I think it was really, for me, I had to carve time out to observe her and spend with her and say, okay, and I actually brought in more help so that to take some of the everyday operational stuff, like the day-to-day of the department, and I just said, listen, you know, I'll teach you how to do this, but I'll take care of payroll.
Yeah.
You know, it's not particularly hard, it's mind-numbing, but, you know, it's something you don't need to be doing or worry about right now.
She didn't know that you were a non-quant student.
Yeah. Yeah. Girl, you don't have to click a few buttons. I had to learn military time. Come on.
There you
go. So seeing what I could offload for her that, yes, I want you to learn this task, but right now, so in a way, let me help you. In my experience, I know what needs to get done every day.
Yeah.
So let me help you, which I think for a lot of new leaders, time management and being able to prioritize is, in my experience, where I've seen a lot of new managers struggle. So I think sitting down with her and looking at, hey, what's still happening right now, and working with her and saying that's going to go out the window until we're well past this. That's going to go out the window for the next few weeks. This we still need to do every day. So really sitting down, and in an instance where you might want to like push the baby bird out and let them fly, now is not the time for trial by fire, right? Now is not the time for figure it out yourself and don't ask me questions. I think from the NBA, one of my favorite articles was the one, you know, about the monkey on your back. Don't bring me all your
right. Yeah.
The problem. What have you done to solve this? I've had to take a serious step back from that and say, you know, bring me your problems, tell me what's going on. A lot of just checking in on her. Hey, how are you doing? Do you need to leave early today? Do you need some time? How are you managing? What's working? What's not working? And basically asking her, like, are you okay handling this? Do you want me to continue to do this, or are you ready to take that task back? And she's taking stuff back. She's trying, and also I think from a senior leader, letting her lead, because I have a tendency to walk in and hold my meeting, and for me it's very easy. Let me just go into go mode and run things, right?
Yeah.
And let's just take care of this. And we have an agency who assists with our rehab, so they've been sending someone in to help. And I said, am I taking over too much, and getting feedback from him about what I'm doing?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, yeah. I said, I'm, you know, I can stand up and talk, no problem. And I think she's happy to sit back and say, okay, Sarah's taking care of it. And I think from a development perspective, clearly that's not the best way to do it. So trying to let her have more of the voice, even if I'm still coaching her on the topics we need to cover or what needs to be said. So I think, you know, it's a very fine balance between trying to develop someone right now, but giving enough support that they're not going to flounder in this particular situation, because this is totally unique.
It's tough because, you know, even just with new leaders, there's that fine line between letting them make mistakes and you know, which is great because they learn so much from that, but then also where you can allow mistakes and where you have to be more directive.
Yeah.
And, you know, I always think about like situational leadership philosophy, where, you know, if somebody's new to a task, the leadership style they need is a bit more directional. Like exactly like what you're doing. You know, they need their handheld, they need that comfort, they need to be kind of shown the way, and then they'll eventually move through the bell curve, you know, where they're off and running. You know, with something like this, you know, it's so enormous that, you know, it's you bringing in resources, and then you knowing when to be directive, and then, you know, when those good coaching teaching moments are happening is you know, the perfect balance. So that's, you know, that's phenomenal, Sarah. And
and I think letting her know it was okay to make mistakes, because I was, you know, and I mean, for the payroll example, I said, I haven't done this in about a year and a half. I'm pretty sure I remember most of it. I said, it's not. I said, it's nothing we can't fix. And she kind of looked at me like, okay, are you being sarcastic? I said, no. I said, let's announce it at the staff meeting. And what we did was give people information that she had never done payroll, and I haven't done it in a year and a half. So, hey, guess what, guys? There's probably going to be some mistakes on your paychecks. I know that's not what you want to hear, but not to worry. Let us know if there is. Please check your pay stubs, and we'll get it corrected. And I told her, I said, I said, I used to mess them up like once a month. I'd always, I'd miss 15 minutes here or put in, a personal day instead of a vacation day. Like, we're human.
Right.
And she kind of like went, oh, okay, and I said, there's nothing we can't be doing in this system that isn't fixable. I said, and if we just let them know ahead of time, and sure enough, there were a couple minor things and we got them corrected and that was it. It wasn't a huge deal. So I think her seeing that and that we prepared the staff and just that, hey, I'm letting you know I'm probably going to make a mistake because I make mistakes sometimes. And I think that's an important thing for new leaders and also your employees to see.
Very much so. So one last question. This isn't a leadership question, it's for the it's for the unwashed masses like myself. Although I'm pretty paranoid because spending 14 years in healthcare myself, I tend to I turn into like a slight germaphobe and everything else. So I have my mask on. I was one of the first ones to just go ahead and start wearing it anyway. And then I wear gloves to the grocery store, and I've got the right level of sanitizer, sitting everywhere. But for those of us who aren't close to this, we hear different things. Oh, it's 6 feet. Oh, it's 12 feet. Oh, wash your hands, which obviously is good advice. Hopefully, that's one great side effect after this is we're going to be a cleaner society. But what advice would you have just for people so that we're protecting ourselves and we're not hitting the healthcare system? Just trying to kind of get through our days. What advice as a clinician would you give?
So what and again, I am not a doctor. I'm a therapist by license. My observation, but again, 20 years in skilled nursing facility. What's been interesting is sort of everything we were ever told about infection control and PPE didn't all go out the window, but the running joke is like if you worked in one nursing home, all those videos and all the orientation, we could all teach it. I could tell you exactly how to don and doff gowns and gloves, the right order, and how you disinfect, and that you would never ever reuse a mask, and you would never ever reuse a gown.
Right.
And then you go to this meeting and you're developing a protocol on how to reuse these items because it has to change. So on that level, I'm comfortable speaking. What we know is, again, this thing, what we know is exactly we don't know yet. Everyone who thinks they have an answer, the best thing you can do is, quite honestly, and I don't think it's an overreaction because I've seen how this spreads and how quickly and quietly. And again, I can only assume that I was a carrier or that I've been, because at this point I should have been exposed and should have gotten it already.
Mm-hmm.
Been at work every day. So the question is, was I one of those people? I haven't had the antibody testing yet, so I don't know. And knock on wood, hopefully I don't get sick. We don't know. And that's just it. So I've had people who say, I'm going to the store, Sarah, if you want to come meet me, I'll drop this off. And I have to say no to friends, or right now I have to leave my dog home, and they'll say, we'll come over and play with them. And I say, no, I don't want you in my apartment because I don't know, I'm around people who are COVID positive every day.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want you coming in. I would say stay home and don't go around people, even close friends. I've had a couple conversations. They're like, oh, but she's a safe person. It's my parents. They're safe. It's the guy I've been dating. I said, do you live together? No. I said, then you should not be seeing them. I've had this conversation with my own family about going to visit each other or congregating, at a spot in the neighborhood. The people, I think, putting chairs outside and sitting 6 feet apart. It's not smart. I know it's hard, and I know the 6 feet, and the reason the 6 feet is because we think it's aerosolized. At that point, it's droplet. They're still saying it's droplet and that it's not airborne. I don't think we know enough yet.
Right.
Seeing how this spreads. But the best thing you can do, I think, is when you do have to go out, one person, I know we're all itching to get out, try to do those off times, wear your mask. The mask is really to protect others. When you're all outside, if everyone's wearing them, we're doing a better job of protecting each other. Don't touch your face. And I'm the worst at this. I probably touched it 1,000 times in this video, but at least I'm home. But if you've been outside or interacting with someone else, how you're going to get this illness, just because I touched a subway pole or touched something that has COVID, even with my bare hands, and I don't wear gloves outside, I carry, 8 different things of hand sanitizer with me. And wash as soon as I get anywhere. But it's washing because where it is if it resides on a surface and you touch that surface and then you rub your eye, do one of these,
Yeah.
do one of these. That's how it's going to get transmitted. So the mask also helps in that it makes it harder to touch those
Touch your
areas
face,
on
yeah.
the face. So I would say, avoid, it's not so much the touching in the gloves, because anything you're wearing gloves with and you touch, you're just infecting everything else that you've touched with it. I see people sitting with gloves then on their phones, and you've just infected your phone and everything else.
Right. Then you get home and you take the gloves off, and you're all safe, and then you pick up your phone. Yeah, you have
to clean that. I would say, the two biggest things are probably, truly stay home as much as you can, if it's at all possible. And when you do have to go out, wear that mask. Really it's protecting others, and just avoid, it's okay, you're going to have to touch other things. We have to touch things, but don't touch your face, because that's really how it's going to get transmitted into your body from what I've seen. But again, as we know, it changes.
Stuff's changing
daily, and the only sure thing I've seen about this is just that despite best efforts, amazing infection control protocols, even copious amounts of PPE, you see doctors, nurses, healthcare workers still getting sick, doing all the right things, doing all the right infection control, and people are still catching this virus. So it's a sneaky little bastard, and I'll be glad when it's in our rearview mirror. But I think it's going to be with us for a while.
Yeah. So it sounds like just that limited exposure, and I know that it's just people are itching, and kind of like we talked about, people are emotional beasts. So, and we also tend to be herd animals, right? And so, it's easy to say, okay, we've had enough of this, and some states are starting to unlock, and I know I see comments where people are like, well, they'll just they'll just have a major spike there. I mean, gosh, hopefully that doesn't happen, because again, it overwhelms the system. But hopefully people are just keeping their movement limited, and like you said, I'm relying on my old days of nuclear, biological, and chemical training, where take the gloves off the right way. I sanitize my phone. Don't touch anything.
Oh, my cell phone has never been so clean. I swear. In my life, it's never been this clean. And I will say, I've heard two things, and we in New York, we kind of hit that plateau, and I think we're starting to be on the downside of it.
Yeah.
But I live a major source of my anxiety these days is a resurgence, the second wave, and I hate to say it, but it's going to happen. The question is how hard it will hit. We live in constant fear of that, and then other people saying, "Who cares if I get it? It's my choice if I get it," and it's no longer just the elderly, but I've seen it. I have seen people with no symptoms, talking like you and I are talking, spike a temperature, and within 2 hours they're gone.
Wow.
That's it. So
that's
imagine
the reality of it.
You think you need to meet your friend that badly, or be outside that badly, or make that extra trip. I don't know. And for most, for what we know is we still don't know enough about this, because you're starting to see stories now about healthy people, marathon runners, triathletes with no other health issues who are dying from this disease. And again, what I'm seeing, and it moves in a way that's just unbelievable. I've never seen anything attack and affect people this quickly. And odds are you were sick for a while and just didn't know, but then the minute the symptoms show, you could be too far along already to get the help you need, and that's it. So, that, I guess that would be my advice, is to really think about that. And maybe you are one of the lucky ones who doesn't, but who, doesn't mean, again, when we look at those models, how it spreads, you don't know who else you're infecting, and would you want to be responsible for, spreading it to your friend who takes care of their elderly grandmother at home, and grandma dies, because that's what's happening.
Yeah. Well, great advice. And Sara, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. It's been a joy talking
Thanks for
to
having
you.
me.
Yeah, and and just like I know you sent somebody my way yesterday. I mean, I really do think this is what you're facing is so similar to what a lot of veterans have faced and known, experienced, and so I know that there's a lot of us out there that could have advice or just be that shoulder to lean on, where even though our environments are different, the experiences are very similar. And please, I look forward to our continued jokes and conversations. And but if you or anybody that needs anything, you can always reach out. And
I appreciate that, and I think as we move on into different phases of this, that it will be needed. And I've actually tried to be very open about the fact with people that I'll be seeking help and counseling to process this as I go through it and when it's over, in the hopes that other people will hear that and know that it's okay. That there doesn't need to be a stigma. That there doesn't need to be stigma around that. That this is a true trauma, and that there's a lot to process with this. And I've been very open about the fact that I'm going to need counseling and help to continue to process this as it happens. So hopefully others know that that's okay, and I appreciate it. And I think maybe the healthcare veteran connection is a great one to have, and maybe there's anytime we can connect those people with those shared experiences, I think that's great.
Yeah, I love the fact that you're being outspoken about it. It's kind of like where we are today with PTSD. If you look back, even at my grandfather was in World War II, right? It's really not that far back in our history, and shell shock, and people were treated very much differently because we just didn't understand it. Whereas today we embrace it; it's part of the narrative. We know that there's a high suicide rate amongst veterans, and so treatment is something that's talked about positively, and I think that's great that you're speaking out on that, because it's not a sign of weakness. We all need support, so that's phenomenal. But thank you so much, Sara. I really appreciate your time, and enjoy the rest of your Friday. Hopefully, I don't know what your work schedule looks like, but hopefully you don't have another 10-day brutal.
No, hopefully not for a little while. I got today off because I know I'm like, is it Friday?
I know. I actually paused. I paused for a second there. I'm like, it is Friday, right? Because it also feels like Saturday, but it could be a Wednesday, so I'm not really sure. So, but thanks a ton. I appreciate your time.
All right, thank you. This was great.